When COVID happened, we were all worried about how we would get our hands-on experience. You can study the books all day, but once you're actually in the hospitals helping people, it's so much different.
Greetings all and welcome to Cochise Convos, a podcast dedicated to sharing your stories and information about Cochise College. This is episode 8 of Cochise Convos Quarantine Edition, where we'll be listening to your stories as students and alumni and how you've managed to adjust during the COVID-19 pandemic. Today, my guest is Devin Williams, who's working towards Associates of Applied Science in Nursing at Cochise College. And today, he's going to be sharing his experience and insight into the medical field during the pandemic. Devin, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me so much, Summer. Wow. I'm excited.
Yay, we are so excited to have you. And you're our first nursing student on the podcast, so we are so pumped to be able to ask you some lovely questions about the medical field.
Nice, I'm ready.
Alrighty, we'll jump into it.
Perfect.
So in general, how was the quarantine period for you? And were you quarantined with anyone or were you by yourself?
I was quarantined with my family. I'm still living at home. I was quarantined with my mom and my dad and me. So yeah, just us three.
So overall, looking at your life as a whole, and this can be both professionally, personally, academically, what was the main challenge for you during the quarantine period?
For me personally, I would have to say being alone, because I'm used to hanging out with friends. It was kind of tough at first, but honestly, after like a couple weeks within quarantine, I kind of got used to it and found a new rhythm. So that helped me out. And being by myself and studying alone kind of helped me. I think it pushed me to work harder because I was used to working in groups, like during school and having labs and having a study group, and being alone. I think I was able to put more effort into my work and not really worry about having conversations or enjoying time with my friends, although that's great, but it's also good to balance. So I think quarantine taught me how to balance, taught me how to be by myself, and yeah.
So Devin, as our first nursing student on the podcast, we definitely wanted to ask you some questions about that. And my first one for you is, what made you want to go into nursing and what drove you to pursue that degree?
Nursing wasn't a career plan that I've ever had in the past. After I graduated high school, I was still doing gymnastics and I was like, going for that. I mean, being a gymnast and the struggle and just being so focused on sports. Once I stopped doing gymnastics and I actually had to focus on my future and start thinking progressively, what am I going to do and how am I going to occupy my time? Like, I don't like to waste time and I want to be moving towards a goal at all times. It started out actually with firefighting. That's what I wanted to do. And I talked to my dad about that. And he said, well, maybe I should try to move closer into the hospital, maybe to make more money and to be able to support myself on my own. And I thought, okay, that's actually logical thinking. Then it went into being a paramedic. And I knew Cochise had a program for that. And then I talked to my dad yet again, and then talking to my grandma, who was a CNA for so long. And, she's just a really good woman, and she worked so hard being a CNA. And when she mentioned nursing, that's not something I've never thought about. And after putting more thought to it, it was in the medical field, and I would be helping people and still using my hands, being active, because nurses are always on their feet and moving around. And after giving it some thought, thought that it would be a good opportunity for me to learn more, not just about the medical field, but about my own body and how to, take care of myself as we age and everything. And then after going to Cochise College for a little and doing general studies and reading about the nursing program, I really fell in love with it. And talking to my grandma more and more, she was just so excited and really wanting me to go down that career path. And I think collectively, after, thinking about it to myself, because I wanted to make sure I was doing something I wanted to do. You know what I mean? Like, if you're passionate about it, it's going to come easy. And definitely having my family there to support me was great. So choosing nursing was probably one of the best decisions that I've ever made.
That's so beautiful. I love that because it's completely encompassed in everything that you do. And definitely within that field, COVID-19 has definitely been very prominent within all of our lives, but specifically in the medical field.
Right.
And I wanted to ask you a little bit about your curriculum during this time. And how was COVID integrated into your curriculum as a nursing student? And if so, as a follow-up, how were your courses modified during the lockdown period?
In our nursing program, we have to do clinicals, which is one of my favorite parts because it's very hands-on and we're actually in the clinics, in the hospitals. It's so much fun. During the first semester of last August, when we started, it was great. It was smooth. This is before COVID arrived. And then December came and we had our winter break and we went back to school in January and we were going to have to do clinicals again, just at a different facility. We were switching groups and places. When COVID happened, we were all worried about how we would get our hands-on experience because that's such a huge part of nursing. You can study the books all day, but once you're actually in the hospitals helping people and learning things from the nurses that are actually working, it's so much different. And I think it's great to learn that way, like kinetically, being physical and doing things with other people and helping out. So when COVID happened, we would just convert to doing the clinicals online through a virtual simulation. And that was very interesting. Yeah, it was time consuming, but if you actually paid attention, you literally had a patient's life in your hands. And although it's a virtual simulation, you don't want to fail. You don't want to harm anyone. So it was definitely good for learning. And I think everyone transitioned pretty well. Some people liked it maybe more than the actual clinical because they got to be in the comfort of their home, maybe with their families during that time. So I was okay with transitioning to an online clinical, although I'd like to be there physically. I understand that with COVID, we kind of have to transition and be lenient in order to protect ourselves and protect others.
When our college campus shut down, everyone was kind of up in the air, especially for these hands-on fields like our degree programs in the medical fields, our EMTs and our nurses. That must have been really challenging, but thank you for talking about that. And they're definitely interesting. So what was the virtual clinical like? Can you walk us through what kind of the different procedures and how it was using the software?
There were different scenarios. So you'd have one, say, like COPD, and a patient comes in and that's what they're dealing with. And you get report from another nurse and you have to take down notes and you actually upload those notes into the online program and it just kind of checks it off. And then it gives you a version of what they would have written down. So it kind of helps you out and it helps you move along through the actual course. And going along, you listen to the patient, you tend to the patient, but there's also questions in between, kind of at different segments. It was interesting because if you got it wrong, they would change the scenario, but still they would go with the answer you chose. And sometimes the ending wouldn't be so great. Yeah, but they let you start over and kind of choose the right thing to do so you can kind of learn from your mistakes so you don't make the same mistake again.
So that's fantastic, Devin. And thank you for walking us through that and how those clinicals went down during the lockdown period. And keeping this in mind, how might nurses feel the overall impact of COVID-19? And specifically, what are some of the daily consequences that nurses and others in the medical field have to face that the pandemic has placed on their shoulders?
Well, as a nursing student, I don't want to speak on the actual nurses out there right now, but I can give an idea to what I think they could be going through. Being away from their families is hard as it is for anyone with a job, but being so close to the front lines of COVID can definitely be scary. I could only imagine, but as a nurse, we get to show our true strength and do good for people and help them when they're in need. And I just hope that citizens like us who are safe are taking into mind, like, they are working so hard right now to push through and to be strong right now for their families, for the people in need, and for themselves. I think with nursing, you take risks every day, for the better of someone else. And I think that's the beauty of nursing, because it shows how strong you are as a person to be so selfless and to give help to people that need it. And with COVID right now, my hearts are with them, and I just wish them the best. And future Devin, be ready to go.
That is lovely. That's such a beautiful answer. And it's so true because as someone who provides a service to others and placing the needs of others above your own, that is so selfless. And there's so much beauty and honor that goes along with that. So
Yes.
our healthcare workers are our real life superheroes, and they do definitely need to be acknowledged as such. They
Yes.
are absolutely wonderful human beings. Taking that into account, you mentioned how nurses have to juggle several hats. They're not only protecting themselves, but they're trying to protect their families, and they're trying to help our general population who is suffering from the effects of COVID. Can you walk us through a little bit of what a typical nurse's workday is like, and how might this be changed during the pandemic?
From clinicals, I remember we'd go in, and the first thing, a nurse gets there, puts their lunch away, puts their things away, and immediately they get report from the nurse that was on shift from either the night or the day before. And they kind of get it caught up on each of their clients and what's going on, their medications, what they've received, how they're doing. And they take that into mind, and then they kind of tag team where the other nurse, just left and go right in. But it's definitely busy as is, but I can only imagine with COVID right now that it's even more busy and even more grueling, the experience that they're going through. And I think it's just going to be more busy, and really demanding right now. So I don't know if they're getting any breaks. And like I said before, my hearts are with them, and I just hope them the best right now.
Like you mentioned, that is a lot of hands-on critical thinking you have to do because you're coming in and not only having to adjust, okay, what's going on with the situation, but you have to do that for, I'm assuming, multiple patients if you're taking
Right.
over from the nurse who had the shift previous to you. What are your tips or what are your suggestions for supporting our healthcare professionals during this challenging time? Like, is there any places that you could donate to, or any organizations or sanitation techniques, mask wearing, anything like that? What could we be doing to help our healthcare professionals?
It's kind of received differently for each person, with the mask wearing and the social distancing. And I can see both perspectives. Some people think it's a little bit too much, and some people don't think we're doing enough. What I believe is whatever they say we should do, we should take that into consideration for our health and for the people around us. And, wearing our mask when we go out, if some people don't think it helps, but if it brings down our numbers, I think we should definitely be wearing our mask, just being cautious and being careful around each other. And I think it's smart to follow whatever they're putting out and to take that into consideration for the better of everybody. Um, I don't think they're asking too much, but I can honestly say when COVID first happened, I wasn't really masking up, and I thought it was too much. But as the days went on and the months progressed, I'm definitely wearing my mask whenever I go grocery shopping, and I just want to be convenient to those around me. I don't want to, set off any weird vibes. Or I think we can learn from each other, and if we all take this seriously, hopefully we can get these numbers of COVID cases down.
Absolutely. It's a collective effort, like you said,
Yeah.
and we all have our part to do. So thank you for walking us through that, and especially the progression you mentioned in your perspective and how it changed, because I think for many of us, it was hard to make it feel tangible at first, because it was
Yeah,
something we heard about in other countries, but we weren't directly affected yet, and how our
exactly.
perspective does change once that becomes more closer to
And
home.
I'm glad my perspective changed. For those who don't really see it helping wearing masks and social distancing, I can see, rather than to argue, it's nice to be able to understand where someone else is coming from. We all have different minds. Come on, we're all unique. And at the end of the day, we just want to help everybody.
So, looking at your personal life as a whole, what have been some of the positives and negatives of the quarantine period?
I'll start with a negative and on a positive note. A huge negative for me was definitely not being able to see my peers and not being able to see my classmates. I've made a lot of friends in the nursing program. We're all working towards this, a collective goal. And it's nice to get feedback from your peers and study with them and to get different perspectives. As you're going down one rabbit hole, they might be going down another, so you can help each other out. And, so when COVID struck, I couldn't go out and, the campus started to close. And this was during our finals, and that was like crunch time for us. And I was so used to studying with my friends at the campus. One of my really good friends would go crazy on the whiteboards and like write down the whole book, but it was great. And, studying with her, I did so much better on my test after, being with another person and studying through their method. So when COVID came and we had to be quarantined at home, I had to learn how to do that on my own. Honestly, it was great because I made it through the first year of nursing school. Thank you, Summer. But yeah, I would just be in my room studying for hours. It sounds crazy, but that's literally what I needed at the time. And I'd asked my mom to help me like a few times, and it was just great. So yeah, that negative turned to a positive. Gosh, another positive, I guess I got to know myself more. I was spending so many hours with Devin, so that's great. Another huge thing for me was learning to be okay with being by myself, because I would say I'm definitely an extrovert. I like being around people. I love talking. I like hanging out. I just, it's great. But with COVID, I've learned that it's okay to be alone.
So Devin, it has been a pleasure getting the chance to talk with you today. My final question for you is, what advice would you give to someone who's struggling with social distancing and their academics?
My advice to them would be find a new hobby, find something that's fun to do. I was never a baker, but during quarantine, I learned how to make the best cinnamon rolls I've ever tasted. Talk to your friends on the phone, Zoom, like do a Zoom party. That would be fun, Get to know yourself too, honestly, because I feel we do spend so much time interacting that we kind of forget what it is we want and ourselves sometimes. So, okay, so with academics, study. I would say too, just, it's just you and your books, get to know your books. And split up your work too. Don't make it seem like it's so much. If you take it one step at a time, you'll get it,
Absolutely. Devin, it has been a pleasure to get a chance to talk to you today. It's been wonderful. And if you like what you hear, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe below. And also be sure to click the little bell icon to enable post notifications so you get a notification every time we post. Thank you again, Devin, and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you so much, Summer. I had a great time.